chat with someone different today. So again, just take another look around you, who's sat, behind you, in front of you, or around you, because as folks have shifted, you might just have a conversation with other people nearby. So our sermon today on the first Sunday of the month has been part of this Living Stories sermon style. So I will tell the gospel story using some little figures, and then ask a few questions which you'll have the opportunity to reflect on in your seat with those gathered around you. So today's story comes to us from Luke chapter 10. And in chapter 9, Jesus has begun his journey from Galilee toward Jerusalem. And so this story takes place in a small village along that journey. And in chapter 10, he is sending out his disciples to perform his message, to send his message into all of the different towns along the countryside where he will be going. From Galilee to Jerusalem, he did not exactly take a straight route, but rather he found himself wandering amongst these towns and villages. And that's where our story begins. After these things, the Lord commissioned 72 others and sent them on ahead of him in pairs to every city and place that he was about to go. He said to them, "The harvest is bigger than you can imagine, but there are few workers. Therefore, plead with the Lord of the harvest to send out his workers. Go." Be warned, though, that I am sending you out as lambs among wolves. Carry no wallet, no bag, carry no money. Don't even greet anyone along the way. Whenever you enter a house, first say, "May peace be on this house." If anyone shares God's peace, then your peace will rest on that person. If not, your blessing will return to you. Remain in this house, eating and drinking all that is set before you. For workers deserve their pay. Don't move from house to house. Whenever you enter a city and its people welcome you, eat what they set before you. Heal the sick who are there, and say to them, "God's kingdom has come upon you." Whenever you enter a city and the people don't welcome you, go out into the streets and say, "As a complaint against you, we brush off the dust of your city that has collected on our feet. But know this, God's kingdom has come to you." Whoever listens to you listens to me. Whoever rejects you rejects me. Whoever rejects me rejects the one who sent me. The 72 returned, joyously saying, "Lord, even the demons submit themselves to us in your name." Jesus replied, "I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning. Look, I have given you authority to crush snakes and scorpions underfoot. I have given you authority over all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you. Nevertheless, don't rejoice because the spirits submit to you. Rejoice instead that your names are written in heaven." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. I'll offer a couple sets of 2 questions. I invite you to turn to your neighbor, and whichever question kind of sparks something to you, share a little bit about that. I wonder why Jesus sent them in pairs. And I wonder how it felt to be sent by Jesus with no bag, no sandals, and no money. Think about those for a moment. I wonder why they were sent in pairs, and I wonder how it felt to go with no bag, no sandals, and no money. So turn to your neighbor, give a little bit of thought to those. We'll come back together for the next question. I wonder how the hosts felt when they welcomed these itinerant strangers, these wanderers. And I wonder how our own communities would respond if we were to proclaim God's kingdom has come near in our word and deed. So I wonder how the hosts felt welcoming wandering strangers. And I wonder how our own communities would respond if we proclaimed God's kingdom is near in our word and deed. Again, just another minute or so with your part. come back together for our final questions. I wonder what it felt like for those 72 to be like lambs among wolves. And I wonder why Jesus says not to rejoice in power, but to rejoice because your names are written in heaven. So that first question, I wonder how it felt for those 72 to be like lambs among wolves. And I wonder why Jesus says not to rejoice in power, but rejoice because your names are written in heaven. Think about that. Go ahead and turn towards your neighbor. Easy stuff.
There's also a verse in Matthew 18:20, for where 2 or 3 gather in my name, there I am with them. So it's also easier to have the Spirit with you and do others if there are multiple people gathered for spiritual reasons.
Yeah, thank you. So Finn was able to point out to us that this is not the only place that we see where 2 or more is kind of an important message. It's also in Matthew where we hear where 2 or more are gathered, I will be there. And it's important to have those numbers because when there's more of us, then we are more easily attuned to the Spirit. Yeah, thank you, Finn. Appreciate that. Are there others? Yes, Terry. Thank you so much. So Terry shared that they were reflecting on the wolf and the lamb language, and that sometimes there's even a sense of a lamb in wolf or a wolf in lamb's clothing. And so with 2 people, not only for safety and for being together in spirit, but that they could therefore navigate that a little bit more effectively and be aware of the space and the culture around them. Was that accurate?
Well, this is Lena's.
Lena, would you like to expand?
I think that we walked around, to some extent, all of us in the world, with a little bit of the wolf as armor.
Thank you.
In order to be vulnerable and open and
absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate you clarifying. So Lena was saying that so we will often wear a wolf's clothing as our own armor. Because to be vulnerable in this world is hard, it is scary, and so part of what we need to do is to have that courage to remove that armor. And I would maybe take a step further and say to be like lambs amongst one another, and to recognize that vulnerable nature within us, so that we don't have to feel the burden of that armor. Yeah, thank you. That's wonderful. Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, it probably layers to this, but we without shoes, right, showing a humble circumstance, kind of like sheep's clothing, but also a reflection of Jesus himself came into the world under the humblest of circumstances, trying to endure the humblest of circumstances. Feels like a reflection of Jesus as well. So if he's trying to find his sheep, that seems like a good way to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So recognizing the vulnerability that Jesus brought with him into the world as he came into the world, as truly an infant, the most humble and vulnerable, and what Jesus does to call lambs to him, to share that likeness. Is that what you're getting at? Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Perhaps one or two more? Yeah, Martha.
We talked about the fact that they came without anything, and therefore were less restless, and they became more humble,
Yeah,
and people would let them in,
absolutely.
because they wouldn't be as frightening as somebody that had everything
Yes.
to the door. But we also talked about what happens now if somebody comes to your door, and would we know if it was Christ?
Mm,
Would we know if the homeless person that walked into our church right now was Christ?
right.
How would we know who it was?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Martha was sharing around the question of the disciples or the 72 being sent out without anything. And she said that when you go without any possessions, then you're not really seen as a threat, because it's not like you're holding on to things that you're going to try to protect and defend. And so there's a humility and an openness that comes from being possessionless. And then that got them onto the track of wondering, how would we recognize Christ if Christ came among us? Because in our culture, that's a very strange thing to see someone with nothing. And so how does that then help us to see Christ in our midst as someone who possesses nothing? Yeah, all right. Final one. We're going to go back here. Where do you have Christ?
My friends and I were talking about how many people put like rules on how you should love God and how you should love one another, but like it's just about loving God. One another is not about like if you put rules on habits, you shouldn't.
Yeah, thank you. So the comment was that this is about loving God and loving one another, and that there's no need to put rules or restrictions on that. So hopefully there's nothing that limits us in being able to embody and enliven love with our neighbor, love with God, and love with ourselves, right? Yeah, thank you. This is a fascinating story, and we're going to continue this journey with Jesus. But I hope that you've heard something today that will give you pause for reflection throughout the week and help you think about how these things of going without any possessions. And I might actually remind us too, St. Francis says the poverty of opinions. So I imagine even that the 72 sent out, don't even carry your own ideas and limits of what God is like and who God is. That can be a pretty powerful message for anyone going out. So hopefully we can all recognize that nature of the Lamb within us and be willing to be vulnerable. Thank you so much for all of your sharing. You've given me a lot to think about this week as well. And with that, I invite you, I'm going to put this away. You can shift back into your regular seats. I know this was so uncomfortable.